Today, I'm talking about The Call of the Wild. Was it tame, or did it make the right call? Let's find out. Welcome back to Featured Films. My name is Joe, and again, we're talking about The Call of the Wild. Now, before I do get started, I want to say
I was sleeping for 2 days.
That here I'm going to do my review. There's going to be no spoilers or anything. And then at the end, I'll let you know. I'll even leave the timestamp down below to where I'm going to talk about some of the spoilers and things and go over that for those that are interested and maybe already seen the movie, or even if you haven't seen the movie but you want to know what kind of happens, check that out. This movie was on my radar because it has Harrison Ford in it. You'll obviously know him from, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Blade Runner. He's been around for ages. Everyone knows him. Everyone loves him. And his character's name is John Thornton. He's this old man living up in the Yukon, trying to escape and get away from the world and get away from people, and just kind of lives in solitude. And so I was definitely interested in seeing this movie. When I saw the trailer, I was left a little bit of mixed feelings. It looked good, it was beautiful, but it didn't quite grab me. And so I was kind of unsure what to, think of. Then when it came out initially, there were some mixed reviews. But I gotta say, after seeing it, I really liked it. It does throw you off a little bit because all the animals in the movie are CGI. So it loses a little bit of, believability just because of that. Now, they look amazing, but you can definitely tell by just facial movement and all the things that they do and how they kind of interact with things. They are CGI and not actual animals. The, main character, Buck, who's the dog in the movie, the first half of the movie follows him and his story. Through all this, he ends up getting himself all mixed up into things and eventually comes across Omar Sy's character. His name is Perrault. You'll know Omar Sy. He was in X-Men Days of Future Past and Jurassic World. They meet up. They have this great relationship, interaction. Perrault talks to Buck and all the other, dogs like they're people. He just explains things to them. He's just very casual. And actually, Cara Gee, her character, Francoise, which you'll know Cara Gee from The Expanse, and she was actually in an episode of Letterkenny. But her character, she keeps constantly telling Perrault, hey, they're animals, they can't understand you. But it's very clear that with everything that goes on, the animals do understand, and they communicate pretty well. And eventually, he, through all kinds of circumstances, meets up with Harrison Ford's character, and they, go on this big adventure and things, and it's definitely a man's best friend kind of dog lovers movie. If you love dogs, you love pet movies, go see this. It's so good. I'm a big dog person, and this movie got me. I mean, growing up, I always loved watching Homeward Bound, and this movie kind of fits that vein. It's dog on an adventure, and it's just, really fun. It's really amazing. The story's touching and moving. The things they can do, because it's not an actual dog, it conveys a lot more emotion with the dog's face. And I mean, there's no talking with the animals. They convey a lot of emotion just from body language and things they do, and little whimpers and barks and all kinds of stuff. It's a masterclass in communication, and before long don't even realize, that these animals aren't even talking. They're simply communicating. They're getting their message across by, looks and snarls and all kinds of stuff. Once Buck ends up meeting or coming across Harrison Ford's character, they end up running into Hal, another character who's played by Dan Stevens, who you would know from Legion, Beauty and the Beast, and also Downton Abbey. And Hal is this super rich, snobby guy and doesn't know how to, run a dog sled or anything, and he's just this complete jerk and abusive to animals, and they have a bit of a clash. His character, at times, I think they could have made him a little bit more of like the villain. He's kind of spun that way, but he ends up not having a lot of screen time, and he could have had a lot more, but it's due to them introducing him so late in the movie. Which, I mean, for a book or something, I can completely understand. For a movie, it just feels a little late. There's no real development, and you don't feel that he's as bad as he is, but they try to push it as much as possible, and you end up hating this guy, but they could have done a lot better job of giving some more time. There are some things I do really like about this movie. Cara Gee, she's actually Ojibwe, which is one of the largest First nation populations in Canada, and she plays like a First Nations character in the movie. So she's very representative of this area, this time frame, the culture that was already there before people started, going out to the Yukon. And it's nice to see that kind of representation, because you don't always get that. You end up getting people like Johnny Depp or Daniel Day-Lewis, who end up playing Native Americans instead of actually, actual, First Nation, Native American people, playing those roles. So it's nice to actually see that representation. Also, like I said, the movie's gorgeous. It is completely stunning. You are always just looking at the scenery. There's just vast shots all the time. Even when there's like action shots, they have big, wide shots to where you can see things going on, and it's just a beautiful movie. All the scenery is very captivating, but then there's, again, you kind of lose a little bit of it because of the CGI with the animals. And so at times just animal movement and animals being in the shots kind of pulls you out of it, and you lose a little bit of that movie magic, that believability, to where you're out of it, but you still feel for, everything. By the end of this movie, I mean, I cried about twice, I'm not going to lie. It's a very touching movie, and movies like this, especially with animals, they're going to get you. If you're, an animal person, this movie will get you 100%. Now, the music is also a nice touch. It's done very well, sets up this kind of adventurous, just epic, feeling that, you're just adventuring out into the unknown, and it really, meshes well with the theme of the movie, as well as just, the scenery and the aesthetic. I would definitely recommend going to see this movie, especially, like I said, if you're an animal person or if you have kids. This is a good family movie. Everyone's going to enjoy it. Kids will enjoy it. Maybe not little kids, because there's a little bit of roughness. There's, some animal cruelty and things that kind of happens that would definitely, maybe little kids might not want to see, or you might not want your kids to see. But it's maybe like 10, 11, 12. Take them to see it. It's a good movie. They'll really enjoy it. It's a fun time for the whole family. All right, now I'm going to get into some spoilers. There's constantly these visions and things that are in the movie, to where Buck, the dog, whenever he's kind of finding this inner animal, this inner beast, because he was domesticated, he was living at a home for so long, and he had never been out in the wild as an actual animal. And so they keep showing this like giant black wolf with yellow eyes, and it's this very beautiful, very powerful imagery, and I loved seeing it. It was very cool. And then just the mix with Harrison Ford's character and his tragic past, where he had lost his son at this time due to the flu, which seems kind of interesting with all the stuff that's going on currently with flu and coronavirus and things like that. But back then it was far worse. You were far more likely to, if you caught something to where it could kill you. Now, his son had died young. He was distraught. He mentions in the movie, he just kind of distanced himself and eventually just had to get out of the house and leave. And he left his wife, left everything behind, went, to the Yukon, and because it was his son's dream. And it's very touching. And he goes through this whole thing. And so that's why him and Buck go out on this great adventure out into the wild. And, they go down rivers and they're seeing all kinds of things. And they find this little cabin, which is basically where the end of the movie takes place. And Buck runs into some timber wolves and kind of ends up getting finds a girlfriend and all kinds of stuff, which was a little funny, but it was, I guess, whatever. The climactic scene where Harrison Ford's character John ends up being at the cabin, and Hal, the rich evil guy, shows up because he's searching for gold, and he thinks John knows where this gold is, and so he's hunting him down, trying to get this gold, get revenge, because earlier in the movie, John tried to warn him that if he went out on this river to where the ice was thinning and melting and was going to break, to where if he went out there, he was going to, die and lose all of his dogs and all kinds of things. And he still went out on the river, but he shows up again, later on in the movie, and he's, chasing down, fighting. There's a, little wrestling going on, and Hal shoots John, and then, Buck shows up and he's wrestling with him and ends up pushing Hal into the fire of this burning cabin and ends up killing, and the cabin collapses and kills him. And this is where we have the touching scene with John and Buck brings him this journal and the harmonica, and it's just this really touching scene, and you end up just crying. And this is also like the end of their journey, but it's the end of kind of where Buck has finally found his place. He now has, a pack to kind of call his own. And so, yeah, it's this really, it's this really beautiful thing that's going on to where they eventually show that he has, puppies and all kinds of stuff, which, it's a nice way to wrap up the movie. Early on in the movie, one thing that definitely got me was I was wondering whatever happened with Buck's original home, the judge and everyone. Like, what did he, what did they think happened? Like, did they ever try looking for him? I thought, because I had never read the story and I wasn't familiar with it, and it's been a long time since I had seen any of the other, previous versions of this movie, and I was wondering if they were ever gonna show up, if Buck was ever going to come back to them or anything. And there was nothing. He just ends up getting abducted and sold, and that's it. They're just never thought of, spoken of ever again, really. One of the other things I did have an issue with, like I said, was with Hal and his character development. He was definitely awful person. But I feel like if they'd introduced him a little earlier, stretched out scenes a little bit more, showed him interacting, not just, kind of being whiny, and shown more with, when he was actually in charge of the dogs. Instead, they just showed one quick thing. It was real short, and it didn't quite feel right. Like, the dogs were all exhausted and worn out, and Buck couldn't go on. But it was real weird, because we had just seen Buck constantly running these, these routes and everything. And I just wanted to see a little bit more, maybe stretch that out, give it another scene or two, just to show all the stuff that they did go through that wore him out so much, just to make it feel a little bit more believable. Because one scene, they're all like, okay, let's go. Oh, we're stuck. Okay. Oh, okay. Now we're not stuck anymore. Let's get the sled going, and they're running. And next thing you know, they're all just exhausted and can't keep going. Like it just didn't. Like I was left wondering like how they got so worn down, and so I would have liked to have seen more of that. Other than that, movie was great. I loved it. I definitely recommend going to see it. It was a fun movie. It was. I would see it again. Since I've seen it once, I'll hold off. I'm going to see it whenever it comes out on streaming or something. But it's definitely worth spending your money on going to see this movie. Now, I do want to thank you all for, again, liking, commenting, subscribing, all your support. It means so much to me. We're constantly growing. We've now crossed over 200 subscribers. We're just keep going ahead, and I'm super excited for us to continue growing. If there's a movie or show or anything you want me to review, definitely leave a comment down below. And you all have a great day.